born in, my goodness, Hasina? Yes? Czechoslovakia. I got it right the first time, my goodness. She survived 2 different ghettos and then was transported by cattle car to Auschwitz, where she and her niece were selected for work. She survived several labor camps as well as a death march that ended in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Sick with typhus, Judith was barely alive when she was liberated by the British. Judith, who has extensive speaking experience in schools, is vice president of the Holocaust Child Survivors of Connecticut. She just received an honorary doctorate from Fordham, and she has asked that when you see the film, you pay particular attention to the triangles that are on the striped uniforms. Those triangles identify people who are LGBTQ. She asked that you pay particular attention to the cattle cars that people were being transported in. And the last thing that she asked that you pay very particular attention to was what happened to the twins by Mengele. It's now my honor and a privilege to introduce Judith Altmann.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for being here. And I thank the school for inviting us, because without the invitation, there would be no way for us to come to speak to you. Watch carefully what you see, and then I will tell you my story. Thank you so much.
Amar Rabbi Elazar. Amar Rabbi Chanina, Talmidei Chachamim, Marbim Shalom Ba'olam, Marbim Shalom Ba'olam.
pleasant film to see in a beautiful sunny morning, but it helps you to see what it was. You, ladies and gentlemen, are the last generation that you will hear a Holocaust survivor, because we are getting older and very few of us can talk. And it is so extremely important for you to hear what anti-Semitism and differentiating hate can do. And you will hear that, what happened to me and what happened. We lost 6 million Jews, out of which 1.5 million children. And it was the most horrible thing. But not only the Jewish people, there were 10 million other nationalities. Because Hitler said, when he is finished with the Jews, he will kill all the Slavs as well. He wanted a reine Rasse, a pure race. And that is, thank God, he did not live to see that. But this is why I made it my plan, in my wish, that to educate children to see what hate can do. I come from Czechoslovakia. It is a small country, but as democratic as the United States. There was no discrimination anywhere. Free enterprise, free schooling. Nobody ever asked you what nationality, what religion you are. But unfortunately that ended. In 1938, Hitler decided he was going to occupy first Austria. But that was an easy way for him, because the population in Austria was all German-speaking. So there were many, many of his followers. The next part, he wanted just a part of Czechoslovakia where they were predominantly German-speaking. It was called Sudeten. So he said to England and France and to the United States, that's all I want. So what happened? We were sold. We literally were sold. They gave him the Sudeten, and he promised he will not go any further. But he did not keep his promise. In March 15th, that was 1939, the German soldiers just walked in, including Hitler himself. He came in and just settled himself in the castle in Prague. After the occupation, our life has changed drastically in every country. Every Jew had to wear this, as you saw, the Star of David on the sleeve and on the back. So wherever you went, they saw that you were a Jew. In different countries, a different color yellow, lighter, darker yellow, but it was always in yellow. After the occupation of every country, the first thing they do, they took all the men from the age of 18 to 45 to slave labor camp. And they were going in just in their civilian clothes. They went ahead of the German soldiers where they occupied. And they used them for the hard work and the hard building roads, building bunkers. A very small amount of these people survived the camps. Talking about my area where I was born was called, the town was called Jasina. After the occupation, our part, that was the Carpathian Mountains, it was given to Hungary because prior to 1918 it all belonged to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. But the Hungarians were Nazis as well. They were just as bad. However, in our part, the Jews were still able to stay in their homes. Unlike in any other part they occupied, they gathered the people and took them into a ghettos. I'm sure that most of you know what a ghetto means. They take one part of the city or town and put all the Jews in one place, extremely cramped. And from there, they transferred them to concentration camps. At that point, it was still just concentration camp. But later, after 1942, they transported them to exterminating camps. Upon up until 1942, they had a quota. The Germans had a quota. So and so many Jews have to be killed every single day. So what did they have? They had a special group of SS men, and they called them the Sonderkommando. That was a special unit. And they were killing people by the gun. They called it the most expensive way. And at 1942, they decided that the higher echelons of the Germans, that were Altmann and all the higher rank, they came not far from Berlin in a town. It was a very fashionable town, I forgot at the moment the name of it. And they sat there with a gourmet lunch and wine, and they decided that this is too slow and too expensive to do. So what did they do? They decided to build exterminating camps, where the gas chambers are there and the crematoriums. And they are able to kill thousands of people in one day. So that happened after 1942. Coming back to my hometown, in our town they took all the men away. We Jewish children could no longer go to school. I met my friend Olga, and she said, "Judy, why weren't you in school?" "Because I'm Jewish." "But you were Jewish yesterday." She could not understand what happened in a short time. They took our possessions away. They confiscated everything that we had. My father had a general store. You could buy anything from a needle to a horse. They put in men there of their own, and the money from the business was going to the government. We had horses, we had a farm as well, horses, cows. They took everything away. They left us one cow in order to have some food. We could not go shopping, not until everybody shopped till late in the afternoon. We could not walk on the sidewalk. We had to walk on the gutter. At 6 o'clock there was a curfew. We could not be out seen on the street. We could not listen to a news. They took our radios away. We could not buy a newspaper. We were called Unmenschen, subhuman. Again, but we were still together with our parents, with the news, every single day different news. Today they are taking the older people away. Today they are taking children away. Constant fear what is going to happen. Our parents, we were young teenagers or infants or very young. What do you do with children all day? How do you keep? So they taught us how to knit, how to sew, how to cook, how to build houses, how to do something with our time. But again, we were still there. But unlike in all other parts, what they did, I come from a family of 6 children. My oldest sister, there came out a law that only for Jewish people all over, if your ancestors did not pay taxes in the 1850, they were taken away. They weren't taken away, let's say they were born in France or in the United States, they were taking the entire family and send them to Poland. Jasina, my town, was bordering the Polish border. Every single day there were transports coming in by buses, by trains, and they were taken to the German border. Most of them never even made it to the border. They were shot and killed before even reaching there, and the bodies were lying around. My sister, my older sister, was married. She had 2 children, a son of 16 and a daughter of 14. I was 14 years old when they were occupied us in 1939. She could not prove those papers, so she was taken to Poland, but she was fortunate to smuggle herself back. My next sister in line was married, and she lived also in Poland because her husband was from there, and she had 2 children, a 3-year-old little girl and a 7-year-old boy. But what happened in that town, in 1942, they gathered all the people from the town of Mikulichin. They made them go out of town. They made them dig their own grave. They made them get undressed to utilize the last piece of clothing. They shot them into the mass grave. Subsequently, some of the men covered the grave. And these are the mass graves that are all over Poland and Belarus. There is a French priest, I'll tell you the name of it, I have it in there. He found these graves. How did he find it? Because his father, who was a prisoner of war, he came from France, and he was a prisoner of war in Poland. After the war, the son came to look for where his father was buried. And that's when he found all these mass graves. There are all over Poland. And when I was there in 2010 with 80 American students, we went to see some of them. Unfortunately, my sister that lived in Poland was one of the people that was killed like that. As long as we go home, my mother is able, since we had that 1 cow, my mother was able to save up some milk and butter and some bread, and we hired a peasant to bring it to my sister Charlotte. One day he came back and he said, I regret very much. I could not deliver to Charlotte, but I witnessed her execution. He was there when he saw what happened to Charlotte. Again, my next brother in line was married and he lived in Belgium. He had 2 sons, and when Belgium was occupied, he was fortunate to smuggle himself to England to join the Czechoslovak army to fight against Germany. My sister-in-law with my 2 nephews was able to get to France, to the south of France, where they were not occupied yet, and a Catholic family saved them. Valan added, many non-Jewish families, Russian and Polish and Czechs and Hungarians, took some Jewish families and hid them. Had they been caught, they would have been killed as well. But they took the risk and saved many Jewish people. In Israel, there's a place called Yad Vashem, where they honor all the people that did that and their ancestors. My only lucky brother of all 6 of us was able to go to the United States in 1939. My following brother in line was a dentist. He was taken to the slave labor. He was 3 years with the Germans, subsequently caught by the Russians and sent to Siberia, from one hell to the other. I was the only one at home. It would have been a chance for me to maybe go with the Kindertransport, because England was nice and they saved quite a few thousand children that they took them before they were taken away by the Germans to Auschwitz. I could have, and my father said, "Judy, go, you might save your life." And I did not want to leave my parents, and I did not regret it. I was there to the last moment. Again, we were there. It was a terrible way, waiting constantly, hearing what's happening. Finally, it was one April morning. It was one day after Passover. It was 6:30 in the morning. 2 SS men and 2 Hungarian gendarmes knocked on the window. "You have a half hour. Take all your money and take all your jewels and enough food for a day." What do you take after living your life there? My father was a very religious man. He took his prayer book. My mother didn't want to go. She says, "I don't want them to kill me. I am going to drink something." So she goes in a dark room where we had all kinds of things. I said, "Mommy, you always have time to die." I took my manicure set, that was my last birthday present, and we started walking. We walked down to town. We lived 6 kilometers, 4 miles from town. We came to the town. We were told to walk up to the cemetery. My father said, "How convenient, they're going to kill us there. They don't even need to bury us." That did not happen. Within that 1 week, they said, "One person, go home and bring more money and more jewels. It's going to save your life." I went home. My parents didn't want to go. I had a beautiful dog, German Shepherd. Harry was his name. I asked the woman that worked for us, "Where is Harry?" She says, "He stopped eating and he died." Everything was taken of value already, but we had more money. We had it dug in the ground because we knew that they're going to take us away. And for money, we were hoping that we are going to be able to save our life. It was predominantly gold and jewels. I told the woman to make a dough, put the gold and the jewels in the dough, bake a bread, and bring it to the cemetery. She didn't do it. Hopefully she was able to save it for herself. We were on that cemetery still a whole week. It was snowing. We were sitting on the graves of our ancestors and waiting. It was just the week of Easter Sunday, Easter, and the priests announced it in the church if they wanted to bring food for the Jewish people, and they did. After a week, we were taken by train we did not know where we were going. We were really destined to go to Terezin. Terezin was a model camp. What do you mean by a model camp? Because the world at that time, America and England, they were not in the war yet. What are you doing to the Jews? He says, what am I doing to them? They are my enemies, so I'm taking them to concentration camps, and from there I'm using them for work. But we could not get in, yes. So what happened? He said, come, if you want to see what I'm doing, come to Terezin, Stadt Terezin. It's about an hour by bus or by car from the capital of Czechoslovakia. We could not get in, it was too full. We were taken to Hungary, to a town of Mátészonka. There we were thousands and thousands of people there. But we were living 35 families in one little house. But there was a shelter, there was a bathroom, and there was a meal a day. We young people were cleaning the ghetto, we were taking care of children, and we were there for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, we were told to go to the railroad. This time, we were put into cattle cars, as you saw on the picture. 70 to 75 people in one car, like sardines. They gave us an empty bowl to use as a bathroom and one filled with water. They closed it with an iron bar. We waited till the following morning till they loaded all the people from that ghetto and we started moving. It was the most horrible 4.5 days. The first night a man dies. What do we do with the body? Put him in a corner. There was no corner. Women were giving birth in the dark. There was no light, just a little tiny window. The children were screaming, they are hungry, they are thirsty. The stench was unbelievable. But what was the worst? The worst was that people went berserk. They were screaming and they were hitting people. They went out of their mind. So what did the SS man say? If that noise doesn't stop, we will take all of you out and shoot you on the spot. So what did we have to do? We had to tie their mouths, tie their hands, and keep them quiet. It was horrible. The hunger, you haven't had anything to eat. You could not wait what's going to happen. Suddenly, it was the 21st of May. The doors open, and you see men in the striped uniform running back and forth. And they scream, "Raus, raus!" The German officers are walking around with a dog, with a German shepherd on a leash. They do not give the orders. Only the men in the striped uniform. They're looking at us, looking at young people. 14, 13, 14, in every language, 14. What do you mean by 14? We did not know. What does he mean by 14? He looks at the man. You are a tailor. You are a shoemaker. You are a doctor. You are ammunition. What does that mean? We did not know. Again, he sees a woman with a baby in her arms. Give the baby to your mother. Give the little girl to your grandmother. Stand straight, smile, take your kerchief off. We are bewildered. There is a big sign, Arbeit macht frei. Work will liberate you. And you look in the distance, there is a band. Young women and men in the striped uniform playing classical music. Where are we? We asked them. And they said, this is hell. Again, 14, 14, again. Line up in row of 5. Women separate and men separate. There is my mother, my sister, my aunt, my niece, myself, and my aunt's 3 little children, 2, 4, and 6. There is my father's row. My father, my brother-in-law, my nephew, my uncle, and another man. And we are lining up. And they keep looking at us and saying, stand straight again. Give the baby away. They were warning us. We did not know what he meant. Out comes this tall man, extremely handsome, with a shiny boots and a rubber stick in his hand. This is Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was called the Angel of Death. And he deserved that name very well, because he was to determine who shall live and who shall die. He came to our row. He looked at my knees. He said, go to the left. Me to go to the left. and the rest of them are marching on. And as I passed my father's row, he put his hand on my head as he did every Friday night to bless us. He said to me, "Judy, you will live." These were the last words that I heard from my father. This is the last time that I saw 24 members of my family. We went to the left, they went to their death. You are so young, and I hate to tell you these are horrible things to hear, but that was the fact, but unfortunately. We walked to the left and we came into an enormous building. We walked up 3 steps. We came into a room where there were chairs lined up. Behind each chair is a man with a machine to cut your hair. We were told to get undressed, completely naked. If you have any jewelry, put it in a glass dish and sit down. We were all young women. The oldest woman that he picked might have been the age of your mother, 32, thereabouts. He did not pick people to live. He picked them because he needed them for work. So that's the reason, because he said, if the war ends at 12 o'clock, at 11:55 he will have time to kill the rest of us. We were sitting down, we all had beautiful hair like you young ladies had. They cut it completely bald. We were given a piece of soap in our hand, and we were told to go to a room where it says bath. In our case, it was water. In our parents' case, it was gas. After we came out of the shower, we were given a gray dress. Unlike what you saw the women wearing, they had buttons, some of them had a belt, some of them had a kerchief. We had nothing like that, only a plain gray sheet and short sleeves. There was a very short sleeve. And we were in the big wooden clocks. They were so enormous. And we waited. And we waited until the entire group went through the shower. Finally, we would start to walk. We were in Auschwitz, and now we are walking to Birkenau. It's 1 hour walk. A little bit about what Auschwitz looked like. The entire camp is surrounded with barbed wire. If you touch it, you get electrocuted. There is an SS man and an SS woman every 5th row with a gun pointing at you. There is no way of escaping. There is a big tower, a man with a machine gun pointing at you. There is no way. We walked 1 hour, we came to Birkenau. We were put into large houses. Everyone had a number. Ours was 14, block 14. When we came in, you saw the shelves of how the people were there. 6 or 7 in a row. There was one on the bottom, one in the middle, and one on top. Only the one on top had air. Otherwise, your face only looked like a shelf like that. Only your face stuck out. A little bit about life in Auschwitz. You're being woken up in the morning at 5:30, and you go out to be counted, roll call, Zählappell they called it. You are being counted and counted again. There is no way of escaping. So she died. So you have to drag the body out to be counted. Or they went crazy overnight, and many of them, the person in charge, who was also in a gray dress, and she was handing it in. Every other day, Mengele comes to do another selection. He announces, are there any twins? Are there any twins in this group? Not too many. But thank God you were born in this era and in this country. What happened? He told them, step out. You will have a better life. They did for a while because they slept on a regular bed. They had a blanket and a pillow. They got a little better food. However, what you saw at the end of that film, he and his partner, Dr. Joseph Mengele, he did experiments on the people, tried to change the color of their eyes for the twins, do incisions and all kind of operations on them without any anesthesia. If I have time, I will read to you a letter from one of the twins, what happened. Occasionally we were asked to go, two of the girls, to bring the food to the twins. And they did get a better food and they got a little more of it, but the experiments were horrible. And sometimes we ask the twins when we deliver the food, what is it here? He says, oh, Dr. Mengele gives us occasionally a piece of chocolate, but he does experience, but we are not so hungry. So the experiments were horrible. Anyway, after roll call, you go to the bathroom. Big deal indeed. You go to the bathroom, you are given a few minutes. If you cannot do what you have to wait till the following morning. But that's no problem, because the food is very meager. You get nothing to eat all day. In the evening, you have no spoon, you have nothing. You get a pot of soup, which is made out of turnip and is thickened with some bran. You take a sip, you give it to the next one and to the next one until everybody has just one sip of soup. After that, if there is any left, you have another one. You get one piece of bread, 4 inches square, very thin, once a week. You could eat it up in a minute, you are so hungry, but you hold on to it because you don't know whether there is food again next day. All day long you just sit. Yes, after we came into the barracks, within minutes, within about 30 minutes, there is the most horrible stench of burning air. And we were choking on it. We said, what is that horrible stench? And they told us, unfortunately, these are your parents burning. And we went to the gas chamber, we went out. We went to the shower, and we were the ones that he picked to work. And those they went to the gas chamber and immediately to the crematorium. It was done with such efficiency, thousands of people a day. Again, now we are in the beer canal. We don't go to work. Occasionally we are taken to the railroad to do a sorting from the new transport. One day we were told 2,000 Czechoslovak girls, we are going to the shower. The shower was there every week, but with big fear, are you going to come back or are they going to put us in the gas chamber? The constant fear was there. Because if he couldn't place them to work, they never came back to the barracks. But that one day, 2,000 of us were taken to the shower, and when we came out, we were giving a little blanket. What a treasure, a little blanket. We didn't go back to our barracks, but we were taken to Germany, to West Germany, to the town of Gelsenkirchen. We arrived there, it was a full day trip from Auschwitz. When we came there late at night, we walked about an hour to the place, to the camp, which was built with tents. There we were living in that tent and we were going to work. 1,000 of the group was working in ammunition factories. The other 1,000 were working outside. I was in the group where we worked outside. We built houses, we built bunkers, we built roads, we loaded ships, we unloaded ships. Very hard work of young women. We got a little better food. We got already a dish and we got a spoon. What a wonderful thing to have your own dish and your own spoon. And after work, we worked day shift and night shift. Either in the morning or at night, when we came back from work, we were given a bowl of soup and a slice of bread in the beginning. Later on, one slice of bread every other day, and by the end, we got it once a week. We were constantly very hungry. No human being should experience hunger. You become like an animal. You just don't think like a human being. You're so terribly hungry always. But we worked very hard. If you were sick longer than 2 days, you were taken away never to be seen again. Because as long as you could work, he needed you. If not, you were taken back to Auschwitz or to the nearest exterminating camps. Again, the bombs were coming down. Many of our girls were killed by the bombs. And after many, many months, we were taken to the next city, which was called Essen. Again, down. Those that worked outside in Gelsenkirchen were working in factories now, and the other way around. This time, I worked in the factory. What we did, we put in heavy pieces of iron in a hot oven. When it got hot, we gave it to the next girl. She put it in ice water and things like that. What happened to me, a piece of iron fell on my wrist and it broke. And if you cannot work, you're being taken away. We went back to the camp. It was hurting terribly. I said goodbye to all my friends and to my niece. And middle of the night, somebody taps me on the shoulder. It's SS woman Erika. She said, "Komm, du Kleine." She called me little one. Took me in her little car and took me to a hospital to put on a cast. I said, "What do I need a cast? I'm going to Auschwitz." She said, "Don't ask questions." On the way back from the hospital, she stopped off at the factory and she speaks to the foreman. His name was Mr. Miller. She said, "I need this girl. She speaks many languages. If the Czech girl, the Hungarian girl, the Russian girl, the Polish girl who does not know German, if he tells her what to do, she doesn't understand." So at that point, they call me and I tell them, do this, do that in their language. He gave her the letter and she handed it over to the head of the SS and I was saved. While I'm at it, you ladies and gentlemen are fortunate to be in the most wonderful schools. Learn all you can. In my case, it saved my life. In your case, you're doing it for your career. Hopefully for a wonderful career, for your own knowledge. Learn all you can. Nobody can take that away from you. You will have it forever. And in your case, I hope just for a wonderful career, maybe the President of the United States or anything. You can achieve anything, whatever you have in mind. Just keep positive thinking. Remember, Judy said so. Anyway, we are working yet in that town, Essen, for a long time. The bombs were coming down. Later on, we'll see if we have more time. I will tell you what some of the doctors, some of the German people did. As bad as what Hitler did and what some did. There were some good people as well. Anyway, after many, many months, we were told to go to the death march. But that was really a death march. In what way? First of all, we were terribly emaciated. We had to walk 3 weeks to Bergen-Belsen. That was the destination. But what happened? If there was a mother and daughter, and one lied down and one couldn't walk anymore, and she was dying, what was the thing? We had to drag the other one away, not to die with her, that she should at least save her life. They did not want to leave the loved one behind. That was the hardest thing. Only a half of us that started off in Essen arrived in Bergen-Belsen. They were just dying on the way. We could barely walk. Now anybody that made it to Bergen-Belsen and survived that camp will live forever. When we came into the camp, what you saw at the end, mountains and mountains of dead bodies. Wherever you walked over the bodies. Hygiene, none. Defecation all over. Food, once a day she gives you a bowl of soup. But today she did it in this corner, and you stand in line hoping that by the time you get there, there is still anything left. But the next day, she doesn't do it in that corner, she does it somewhere else, and you don't know where to wait in line. By the time you come, there is hardly any food left, by the time you reach it. My niece is completely jaundiced already, all yellow, and she said, "Judy, I am dying. Could you get me at least something before I die?" The SS women announced, if there are any girls or women that can carry the dead bodies from those mountains, is going to earn a bowl of soup. I was able to find a girl from my hometown, and we carried the bodies. They can be so heavy, the stomach is bloated, the arms are breaking, the legs are breaking. We finally, at the end of the day, we got a bowl of soup, and we were able to share it between the 3 of us. At that point, Ida, my niece, disappeared. I said, "Oh my God, she didn't want me to see her dying." There were days that we didn't see any Germans anymore. So what did we do? We ran to the places where they kept their food, hoping that we can steal some of the food that the Germans had. We didn't know that there were German civilians there shooting at us. 2 or 3 girls were shot like that. And we were so terribly hungry. We did, dear God, how much longer? We knew that there is something. We heard fighting, so we knew that something is happening, because we had absolutely no news. The only news we heard Hitler saying, "Ich werde die Welt erobern, I will conquer the world." He did the last moment. You see, that's why I find that it's so extremely important to reach young people like you, because Hitler had that in mind. He really focused on young people. The Hitler Youth was extremely to him important. What he did, he had the Hitler Youth. He gave the young people uniforms, and they felt so important. I would like to recommend a very good book for you to read. It's called The Sunflower. Try to get it. It's a thin book, but it is very, very important. You will see what propaganda can do. That's why I talk to you. Do not listen what some people will tell you, do this or that. Read for yourself. Be informed. And read carefully, and of course, be very cautious what's going on. And if necessary, if you hear bad news, write to your congressman, do something. Don't say it doesn't concern me, because you young people are our future. You will create a better world, and I know you will do that. Finally, there was one morning that we see soldiers in a different uniform, and they said, "You are free." These were the British. We were occupied by the British. You are free. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear. They gave us all the food they had. Anything that they had, that was wonderful. However, our stomach was all shrank because we didn't have any food, and we ate everything. Many people were dying more than the days before. The entire camp was full of epidemic. There was flag typhoid, black spot all over your body with very high fever, TB, and all kinds of sicknesses. So now what did they have to do? After in our case it was the British, they converted churches, schools to hospitals and tried and saved. They made the German doctors that were killing us the day before to help us. There was no antibiotics, so they did their best, and many people died more than the day before. We finally recouped somewhat. It took a whole year to cure me, and other people as well. Then when we were about able to walk around, they gave us three choices. You can go back to the country of origin, or you can go to your country where you want to go whenever you can. But there was a Swedish Count Folke Bernadotte, and he invited thousands of survivors to go to Sweden. When I woke up after 4 weeks in the hospital, my niece was alive. What a wonderful surprise. Anyway, she chose to go back home, hoping that she will find her brother, who was killed 2 days before liberation. I chose to go to Sweden, and I came to Sweden after that. I learned another language, and I learned my profession, and we found friendly people looking at us and treating us like human beings. And I ask you children, you will do your best, and think for yourself. Don't just, you will hear some friend is going to say, this is not true. I just spoke in a university not too long ago, and a young man said, "Mrs. Altmann, I'd like to ask you a question. Could you help me?" And he didn't want anybody to hear. He says, "My best friend says that the Holocaust never existed. He says it's all not true. How do I handle them?" So I told him, get him some books by Elie Wiesel, by other authors, and explain to him gently that this is, listen to the story I just heard, and he tries to convince him. So you have double jobs. And I want as many questions as you have that I will hopefully gladly answer to you. And I know you'll build a better country in a better world, because you are so fortunate to live in the best country of the world. And I wish that all the best to our country and to our people. So thank you very much for that.
So,
Questions or comments can come up and line up here, and she'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So if anyone has any questions? Think about it.
of you have seen and heard about people being tattooed. Not everybody that came to Auschwitz or to any of the camps was tattooed. The reason he did that is because he told the world that so and so many people, here are the lists of the people that have the tattoo. So not everybody. Our transport did not get it. Okay, let's talk about that. It wasn't only Jews. The Gypsies were also taken away because they were a different race. There weren't any black people, at least that I know of, that lived in Czechoslovakia. Some of it, there might have been a small amount, but they were American citizens and they were able, or African, so they were able to get back home. Are there any questions? Okay. Would you be so kind to come here so that... I'm sorry.
When you went to Sweden, what did you do for a living?
Well, when I came to Sweden, we were able to go to school. That was free. First of all, it took 1 whole year to cure me, so I was in the hospital for practically a full year. And then I went to school, which was also free. The UNRWA paid it. The World Organization paid for it. And yes, so some went to work, so they can do in Sweden. Some people, any of you Swedish people or any of the languages, you can ask the question in your native language.
Step up.
Some questions I'm going to ask.
Go to the microphone.
Yeah.
That's what the microphone's for. You stand up as
Oh,
long
over there, okay. Okay.
where I'm going to ask.
Very good.
So I read a book about a World War II story, and one, the war was almost over, and I know that the Germans knew they were losing, and so they started to try to hide the bodies of the people that they killed, so that they wouldn't find out. So I just
Okay. No, I did not hear that. However, Hitler gave out orders. He said, when the Allies or the Russians or the Americans come to take the people, in every camp there was one barrel full of poisoned bread. And he gave an order. He says, when you see the Allies or the people who are going to free the people, give everybody, every Häftling, they call it, a slice of bread, so they will find dead bodies, not people alive. But thank you for bringing that up.
Hi. So my question is, I have one question to it. Do you live in America now?
I live in the United States. I came here in 1948, and nobody, but nobody loves this country and appreciates this country as we survivors do.
How did you get to America?
Well, I had a high quota. The Czech quota was, I had to wait 3 years in Sweden to reach the quota. So it took 3 years. I couldn't have come in before, even though I had the proper papers. Thank you.
I think the question is, where were you and what was your reaction when Israel was established as a country?
When Israel was established a country, I was in this country and very, very happy that we have our own country and we are doing very well. Thank you.
You said there was a quota that you had to reach
So anyone who was like many people taken her after?
Yes, well, maybe she had a, where did she come from? Well, you know what camp?
Africa.
Oh, she came directly from Auschwitz. Well, I don't know how she came. All the people I knew, they had to wait for their quota. Some of them waited 5 to 6 years in Germany until they were able to come here. But she was fortunate. I don't know how she did it. Thank you. Is she still alive?
She died 2 months ago.
Oh, 2 months. I'm so sorry. What country from?
She was from Czechoslovakia.
Really? You know that city?
No, I don't know.
You know. So it's a fellow Czech. Hello. Did I? Okay. I speak 7 languages, and it helped me a great deal in every way. And you want to know which ones? All right. I speak Czech, Polish, Russian, German, Hungarian, Yiddish, and English. Thank you.
I met you before about Hebrew school. I have a question. So, have you ever found the dead body of your parents? And if you did you make a grave for them?
We could not do anything. If any of us died, they just took them in a little wagon away and never, we had absolutely no power. In fact, there was some days where he said, the lucky ones, he does not have to suffer any longer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So when you were in the camps, what was your motivation to keep on going? Because I know that it was very careful and it could make anyone bad. So what was your motivation?
It is a very good question. In my case, I think it was a religion. Even though there were some days that I said, dear God, how can you? But the sun came out and you said, and another day. You literally prayed from day to day. And I think a little bit of luck as well that you made it.
I have one more. Are you being surviving
No, my brothers, I said, the one brother that was subsequently caught by the Russians, he survived, the one from Belgium, but my sisters were gone, my parents are gone, and my nieces and nephews are gone, all killed.
How old were you when you were told that you were free?
When I went to the camp?
Yeah.
17.
Thank you so much.
How did having this experience change your feelings toward being Jewish?
Well, very often I get that same question. Oh, you didn't hear it?
How did having this experience change your feelings toward your Judaism?
Did you hear it? Yes. Okay. After I was liberated, I met many people and all. They asked me the question: after what you went through, do you still want to remain Jewish? Yes, indeed, I was, and I would not change it for anything in the world. Thank you.
So, I'm a twin, and I was wondering that you said they did a lot of experiments and that they were separated from the rest of everybody else. Was it only done on identical twins, or was it done on fraternal twins as well?
Well, I have all the reasons to hate. Right? What I went through, my youth was robbed, my family was killed, and all that. But I do not hate, because hate only hurts you. It doesn't hurt the hated one. He doesn't know and she doesn't know. There were good people too. Unfortunately, they had a horrible leader and the majority followed. Did they follow it because they convinced? Maybe many of them did. but there were many people. I had a German woman came over, a friend of somebody, and she said, Judy, she doesn't speak a word of English, could you invite her for tea? I did. And she said to me, Mrs. Altmann, in German of course, you probably hate me, but with a right. But I knew that they're taking Mrs. Schwartz and Mrs. Green away, and that they are not coming back. But what could I do? I had 3 children. My husband was in the war already. My children were never hungry. My children were sent by Hitler to the best camps in the summer, and they were never cold. Sure, I could have gotten up and said, what are you doing to the Jews? But I didn't, because I was fearing for my children. So you cannot blame people anymore, but make a better world of it today and do whatever you can.
Can you repeat your second question? You had another question about twins.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
My question was, so you said that there were a lot of, like there were experiments and everything. So were the experiments only done on identical twins, or
on any twins?
Any twins?
Do you have a little more time for that? No. Well, anyway, he did all kind of horrible experiments. If we have time, come over again and I'll be a little more explicit.
How did you learn the languages you speak?
Well, my parents believed very much in education. So we had a German teacher living in my house since my older sister to me. At the age of 10, I had an English teacher to learn. Russian was, one language was compulsory besides your native language in the school. And Polish I learned when I visited my sister. And Hungarian, we were occupied, we had to learn it from our parents. So that's how you learned all the languages. Swedish I learned in Sweden.
Thank you. What disease did you have at the end?
What?
What disease did you have at the end when the British, when the Post forces came?
What were you ill from?
Oh, I had TB and I had flag typhoid, very high fever, and it took a long time. I had water in both lungs, and it took a long time to cure me. Thank you.
Thank you.
What possessions do you have from?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No picture, nothing. I found some picture that my grandmother had with her. But that's all I had, my parents' picture, very poor. And one picture that when I was about 1 year old that they sent to my grandmother, so that's all I had.
Did you ever have any pets after you had a dog when you were a child?
Did I ever mean something?
Did you ever have any other pets after you had a dog when you were a kid?
In this country, yes, I had a Siberian Husky and I love animals. But where I live now, they do not allow dogs, so I can't have animals.
Why were twins the only ones that were experimented on?
Well, but he actually wanted to have, maybe take blood from them and have the German people to have a lot of children and all that. But he really did experiments. And not only did he ask to twins to step out, but pregnant women. And what he did experiments on the fetus. No pregnant woman survived. Some twins survived, but pregnant women, none did.
So this is from the Czechoslovakia, but now there are 2 different countries, Czech Republic and Slovakia.
No, now we used to be Czechoslovakia, and then I don't know how many years ago, about 15 years ago, the Slovaks separated themselves like the French in Canada.
Which part of
Czech. I came from the Czech part. Thank you. Thank you again very much for listening. and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful future in good health, and definitely remember, tell your children, tell your grandchildren what you heard. You will.
So I'm going to ask you just to be still for a minute. On behalf of all of us, thank you so much for coming and for dedicating your life to educating our children. So thank you.